We often trust people based on the labels we give them or the way they fit with our particular group. The affinities that we have, the groups that we belong to, can that sometimes silence our conscience? And the big problem, it's the people we want to form a friendship with, the people we feel an affinity with. So as you know, I wanted to talk today about this idea of friendship, and my particular reason for focusing upon this word is my own experience of coming to Swedenborg and reading this word and its use for the first time. I found quite difficult to grasp, quite hard to understand. Often we have friendships which are based on a kind of a conditional agreement. You know, as we go about our lives, we meet people in the circumstances we happen to find ourselves in, and some we form friendships with and others we feel less inclined to do so. And our friendships, if we're not careful, can be a real source of pain and also spiritual danger. And that's what I just want to reflect on this morning. One of the things I remember being surprised about when Pam and I were dating and going to other Christian churches, and I found it was also true at the university Christian groups as well, there was this idea, people would say, oh, that person's a Christian. And it came with the inherent assumption that that person was therefore to be trusted. And I found that quite a challenge, that simply by calling a person a Christian made them someone worthy of my trust. I wasn't entirely sure about that. We often trust people based on the labels we give them or the way they fit with our particular group. And it's not necessarily the right thing or the right way to go, or very useful. We can have the idea that if you can't do or believe what I do, then you can't be my friend. And I don't know that that necessarily applies. And the problem with it is where it can lead us as a person. Can our groups, the affinities that we have, the groups that we belong to, can that sometimes silence our conscience or lead us down the route of doing certain things that we might not otherwise do? So Swedenborg offers us this reframing of what friendship is, and I think it's really quite a useful one. Many of our friendships begin in fairly external circumstances. We happen to work with a person. We happen to belong to a particular group that this person belongs to. We have a shared interest. We just come into contact with them. And these sorts of acquaintances, we might call them, really are no harm at all. There's no problem with meeting and befriending people in a range of circumstances, whatever that might happen to be. It's when we start to form a closer bond with someone that we need to start to be a little bit more careful with how we choose particular people. Who are the people that we form a close bond with, and how do we make that choice? Now, Swedenborg uses this term, and in some translations it's called a bosom friendship. It's probably better translated a friendship of love. So we're talking about something that's moving from being a mere acquaintance, someone you happen to know in a particular circumstance, to someone who is becoming quite important to you in some way. And Swedenborg says this is a danger. And he says it's particularly a danger when we do so without inquiry into what sort of a person he is, inwardly or in spirit. And he also says this, this is Heavenly Secrets 4992. He says, to do good to a friend, regardless of his character, and simply because he is one's friend, is a natural action that is unspiritual. When this attitude exists, a person realizes that he himself is a sinner if he does good to a friend who is evil. For in that case he does evil to others through that friend. And the big problem that we have to face when we're talking about friendships is not the people that we encounter, it's the people we want to form a friendship with, the people we feel an affinity with. That's the point at which we have to just do this little bit of research, perhaps, into the inner nature of a person. So why do we need to be careful? Is it because we stand to lose financially? No, it isn't. Of course, if we're talking about our finances, who wouldn't be careful? You know, if you're going to go find a money manager or an accountant to trust, an investment manager, you're going to do your due diligence, aren't you? You're going to make sure that they're trustworthy with your money. But that's not what we're talking about. Is it because you'll lose status in the eyes of others? No, it isn't. Is it because that person might let you down? As difficult as that is to experience, it's not actually the reason Swedenborg says you need to be careful with your friends. It's the spiritual ramifications he's speaking about. It's the path that it leads you down, the ways in which you might change your behaviour or your conscience or your attitudes by means of that friendship. That's where you have to be careful. And one of the things we have to be aware of is true friendship actually has nothing to do with being part of the same group. It's nothing to do with agreeing over every little detail of life. It's not about being in the same club. So the definition of friendship is having a shared, genuine love for what is good and what is true. This is what Swedenborg calls mutual love. So it's focused on an entirely different aspect of being than the natural circumstances of life. So he says mutual love has a person's good in view, and in directing itself towards that good, it is directed towards the person in whom good is present. So it's the good within a person which becomes the focus. That's the thing that we're looking for. And then because good is present in a person, we love that person. Now, I want to go to the passage on circumcision in Genesis 17. Because what I find so interesting about that is here we have an external sign which was intended to show the way in which love can be covered over in someone who is doing the wrong thing. So true love, genuine love, is covered over by evil loves. And those evil loves need to be removed for the good love to shine through. Okay, that's what circumcision means. But in being an external sign, what has happened to it? What has happened is that people have identified with the external sign as being the thing that defines whether a person is in the in-group or not. And that's problematic. So do you see what's happened? There's been a shift of focus away from the spiritual thing that the circumcision is intended to represent to the circumcision itself as indicating that that person is worthy of love or respect. And I think that's a very dangerous thing to do. So I just want to bring us back to the idea of the conscience and how important the conscience is. Because when we form a friendship of an inner nature, I think we need to make sure that our consciences align. It's not so much about the details of our religious belief, our external practices, it's about the way our consciences marry together or stand side by side in peace with one another. So you're not friends with the person as such, you're friends with their conscience, with whatever it is they hold as being good and true, and that's what we ought to look for. So what I want to just finish off with is just to say, during the week, a useful exercise you can do is just notice your friends and notice what your friendships say about you. And I don't want to go really any further than that. Just observe those relationships you have. And what is it that it says about you, and in what way does a particular friendship lead you in a particular direction? Just as a way of spending time thinking about your own inner nature and what goes on, in your own head.